All of the Jews had a messianic expectation. They were expecting a Christ. Christ just means Messiah, anointed one. But they didn't agree on who he was like, what he would be. That's why so few people believed in Jesus, because he wasn't the sort of Messiah they were expecting. They wanted a general and an earthly king. So Paul would show them, no, it says here in Isaiah 53, the suffering servant would be stricken, smitten, afflicted. And it says here in Psalm 16 that God would not let his Holy One see corruption. See, God was going to bring him back to life. And then establishing that from the Scriptures, Paul would then say, let me tell you about Jesus. You've heard about him. Well, I saw him on the road to Damascus, and he appeared to the disciples and to 500. I'm telling you, eyewitness accounts can tell you he lived, he died, and he rose again. And then as Paul would reason this, he would connect the dots and say, if that's who we're expecting, and this is what we saw, how can we not conclude that Jesus is the Christ? Oh, sure, many prophets suffered. Some even died. But we've not seen anyone like this who suffered and died and rose again. No, this Jesus is the Christ. And some of them found it persuasive. Notice Paul is not just appealing to their emotions or to stories or personal testimonies, but to reason and persuasion and arguments. Now, if you're going to be a good speaker, you use illustrations. Just reading a preaching book this week was challenging on how to think about illustrations and all the ways that I don't use illustrations, but try to. So yeah, you tell stories and people want to hear about people and all that's good, but a good sermon ought to have reasons. If you want the best story that you can possibly find, the most entertaining story, well, church isn't going to be able to do better than Hollywood. If you want a story that has reasons and has the working of the Spirit through it, well, then you've come to the right place. You see, it doesn't just say, and we had a good time, and a good time was had by all. No, they were persuaded because he was giving them reasons to believe. Some of you may know this hymn. Churches sometimes sing it around Easter. And the ending line says, you ask me how I know he lives. He lives within my heart. Have you ever heard that song? It's about the resurrection. You ask me how I know he lives. He lives within my heart. Now, if you've sung that with all your gusto and to give God praise, then amen for that. But do realize that is not at all what Paul was saying here. You know, if he would have said, listen, there's this guy Jesus, and I'm telling you he rose again because he's in my heart. They would have said, Hercules is in my heart. Zeus is in my heart. This is what people think of Christianity. Christianity is something that some people have to help them feel better and be better and just have, and so you have Jesus in your heart. Well, I'm very happy. I have my grandmother lives in my heart and somebody lives in your heart. That's not what Paul said at all. He said, I'm telling you, there were eyewitnesses. This was a real man. He really died and he really rose again in history. So it's not just you ask me how I know he lives within my heart. He lives because there are eyewitness testimonies to prove it. See, he's giving them reasons.